Joining me now, Jason Furman, former chair of President Obama's White House Council of Economic Advisors and a professor at Harvard University, and Douglas Holtz-Eakin, former chief economist and President George W. Bush's White House Council of Economic Advisors, and also a former CBO director. He's president of the American Action Forum. So, you guys are here to break it down. Doug, let me ask you this. My EP and I like to laugh all the time about the economists on Thursday who have to eat crow on Friday. On this one, what did everybody whiff on, Doug?
I think two things. Number one, the disconnect between the unemployment insurance claims and what's going on out there in the jobs market. I mean, claims are completely different than they were historically because we put self-employed people in, part-time people in, independent contractors. So we had the big claims number, 40 million over the past couple months, and I think that misled people on how much job loss is out there in actual businesses where we're counting employees. The second is just pure timing. You know, you really can't know too much about monthly data. You can lose a lot of money betting on it. You can lose even more betting in a pandemic. Right. But I think people got ahead of themselves on when the bottom would happen, and it was later, not now. But this is really about timing more than anything else.
Jason Furman, is this an endorsement of the PPP? Is this proof that basically that the philosophy behind it, at least in this case, appears to be working?
You know, there are a lot of things, Chuck, going on in these numbers. A lot of it is just businesses had business in May that didn't have business in April. They brought back their employees in order to deal with that business. The PPP probably played a role in May, but to fully judge it, you want to ask, is it worth $600 billion to get these jobs? Because you want to know how long the jobs last. And I'm much less convinced that any jobs that were there in May for PPP will still be there as a result of PPP a couple months from now.
And Jason, I was reading your analysis earlier today, and you were cautiously optimistic, but you were striking a note of caution because you were saying there were some parts of this that indicated it's going to be a while for some sectors to come back.
Yeah, I think that we have a very front-loaded recovery. The easiest part of the recovery is a worker goes back to their old job or a business reopens. That's what we saw in May. The jobs that were added were people who left temporary layoffs to go back to their employers. Even if all of those people went back, the unemployment rate would still be above 7%. And by the way, I don't think it's realistic that all the temporary laid off workers will go back. So I think that at some point we're going to have the normal, long, slow, painful business cycle dynamic, just not in the next couple of months where we'll continue to see rapid gains.
Doug, looking at this report, there is a glaring down arrow, and it is government jobs, right? And that is something that there's going to be, your elected officials on your side of the aisle are not enthusiastic about bailing out those jobs all the time. But if that were the case, and you saw some state aid, these numbers could even be even better. Will it motivate, do you think, more of a bipartisan agreement on rescuing some of these state and local jobs?
I think there are really two different issues. One is, you know, can you write legislation that protects against bailing out states that have past structural problems with their pensions and things like that? That's the real concern. And then the second issue is the fact that, you know, the CARES Act, the previous big stimulus bill, put about $500 billion on the table to help, including municipal governments, state governments, localities, and the Fed hasn't got a dime of that out yet. And so I think the conservatives are saying, look, we may have solved some of this problem already. Let's find out before we write another check. And those are the two things that are going on that front.
Jason Furman, I was thinking today that if House Democrats were frustrated getting Senate Republicans to negotiate with them, that I assume it's even harder after this jobs report right now.
Yeah, I think, you know, I saw a number of conservatives on Twitter today who put it quite well. This is going to reduce the political momentum for a fourth bill. It does not reduce the economic need for a fourth bill. With an unemployment rate in double digits, we have not seen higher unemployment since the Great Depression, with one exception, which is the month of April this year. Other than that, this is the worst month we've seen, so we need to continue. I think state and locals are a really important part of that. The pension problems had nothing to do with why states are cutting back. And the program the Federal Reserve hasn't fully rolled out and used yet is one for lending to states. But the problem is they can't borrow their way through this because they have balanced budget requirements. So that program doesn't help them with their main problem, which is that they need to cut education spending to match their lower tax revenue unless Congress acts.
Yeah, they hide
Doug,
behind those balanced budget amendments, but I mean, honestly, these governors hide behind those balanced budget requirements when they want to pick the pocket of the taxpayer. But if you look at the research on this, they rarely bind. They can move between current and capital budgets. They have off-budget entities like development authorities and environmental authorities. And, you know, when I lived in New York, the Thruway Authority did all the economic development, and the Dormitory Authority did all the building. So they have a lot more flexibility than they're letting on in this moment.
Doug, I want to get at there's an uncomfortable statistic here as you celebrate the uptick in jobs numbers. Black unemployment the unemployment rate went up, not down, while white unemployment is the reason why the overall number went down. That's still, you know, that's in this moment an inequality that I assume policymakers have to figure out how to fix.
Yeah, I want to say two things. I mean, first, this is good news, but it doesn't change my view of what needs to be done for August, September, October, which is what they should be thinking about. And there are important things that are not CARES 2.0. They are, let's help people get back to work with PPE and testing and tracing and therapeutics and changing the workplace so it's possible to go back there, get the business liability issues. So there's an array of things they do need to do. When the economy tanks, the surprising thing was the black unemployment rate didn't rise as much compared to some of the others because they were at work. They were the frontline workers disproportionately. And now, you know, they're still at work. And that exposes them to health issues more than anything else. And, you know, so the fundamental issues have not gone away. We still need to address some of these racial issues. A good jobs report doesn't change any of that.
Jason, how would you answer that question?
Less than half of African Americans were working in the month of May. That's a tragic indictment of the economic system. A lot of that problem was there in February before this pandemic. The pandemic has exacerbated it. You know, in the short run, anything we do to help deal with the economic fallout will disproportionately help African Americans. So continuing unemployment insurance, doing another round of state aid, making the assistance contingent on how bad the economy is, all of that will help arrest the job loss, have job gains, disproportionately help African Americans. But way, way more than that will be needed structurally over the medium and long run.
Jason Furman, Douglas Holtz-Eakin, it's great to have both of you on to help explain this to our viewers. I think you guys do a great job doing this, so I appreciate you doing it, and I hope to have the pair of you back again as we go forward. Thank you both.